In today's episode of the Hotelier Huddle, I had the great joy of speaking with my longtime friend and colleague, Francis Purvey of Sunlark Associates, about his long, successful career so far in hotel sales and marketing and tourism. We touched on how AI, despite its perils and imperfections, can make us humans smarter and better providers of hospitality. We also spoke extensively about the benefits and the power of disagreements and incentives. I asked Francis if he thinks tech is a threat or a support to hotel sales management, and I really appreciated his thoughts on that. Francis also speaks to his early career self with advice about what not to fret about and what the best mantra is for a long, successful career as a hotelier. So there's a little something for everyone in this episode. Enjoy. Hi, Francis. How are you? Gosh, it's good to see
Wow.
you and hear you.
Well, it's great to be with you, Shannon. We worked together so many years ago that it's fun to catch up and now even talk about it.
Just for those few that might not know who Francis Purvey is. So, Executive Vice President of Sunlark Associates, former Director of Sales and Marketing at several hotels, but I think mostly Radisson's. You might clarify that for me. And then Assistant Director, Bermuda Department of Tourism. I'd love to hear more about Bermuda because that era, your Director of Tourism era, was just before I knew you. I think that was before the Radisson on Sand Key.
I was 13 years with the Bermuda Department of Tourism, starting out as Assistant Manager Market Research.
Wow.
You know, one of the good things about this industry, and we can chat about it more, is the fact that I had a wonderful mentor. When I got out of college, I had a wonderful director of tourism, and he knew his stuff, and he
Yep.
shared stuff, and he set great examples for me.
Yep.
And I think I was very fortunate to have that. And that, as a result, I'm big on mentoring, and I have a mentor through Sight right now who is in the Bahamas as a DMC. And I feel great accomplishment that he actually listens to me, which is more than my daughter ever did.
Now, for those at
And
home playing acronym bingo, DMC, please clarify.
Destination Management Company.
Thank you very
Site
much.
Society for Incentive Travel Excellence. And so I was fortunate. And then I rose up to promotions manager and assistant director, sales and marketing, before I moved to the United States.
Wow. So I'm curious, considering that you've primarily worn two primary hats so far in your career, being hotel sales maven and tourism ambassador. So I'm curious, which one of those roles or which hat gets you more compliments and makes more friends at cocktail parties?
Good question. Actually, I would have to say both for different reasons. Obviously, when you bring up Bermuda, Aruba, St. Martin, or even Florida, there's a certain intrigue to some people. And if I'm at a cocktail party where I know a lot of the people, inevitably one of them, especially if they're my vintage or a little younger, would say, "Oh, I can't thank you enough for putting together our Bermuda trip or our
Yeah.
Aruba trip."
Yeah.
And I think the friendships that develop in our industry and in this particular situation are one of the key elements of why you're in hospitality in the first place, because you
Yes.
do. And I don't mean just coworkers like you and I, but guests. And I keep in touch with guests, people that I got to know. If you go back 10 years from now, and I was dealing with Aruba at a resort there.
Yes.
And at that time, saying you were from Aruba was not a pleasant thing because everybody was
Interesting.
thinking of Natalie Holloway, and that unfortunate circumstance,
Yes.
the young lady disappeared.
Of
It
course.
was so bad that obviously people didn't think much of the island, and unfortunately, the people on Aruba, the Aruba residents, did everything that every other resident would do in the case of a missing person in your neighborhood. But the press gave Aruba such a bad name
Yes, I remember
that
that now.
I had one tour operator that sold a lot of Aruba. he had Aruba on the front of his car and on a license plate. He had to take it off because people were being very vicious with him.
Wow.
And about a year later, we were trying to talking a little bit of marketing strengths here, strategies. We were trying to figure out how to get around that. And one opportunity came up then. We hosted the Washington Redskins, they were known then, cheerleaders for their photo shoot. And the idea was that,
Because of
you
course
put,
you did.
yes, young, they all said, yes, sir. Thank you very much,
Yes,
sir.
of course.
The idea was young people having a good time in Aruba. But then we went up to a game and promoted the destination at a particular game. And boy, there were people walk by and said, oh, Aruba, I can't go there. Those are nasty people, which was most unfortunate. But in
Wow.
that case, saying you were from Aruba, now fortunately that's gone away and everybody loves Aruba these days.
Interesting.
Uh, but there are circumstances that it doesn't always work in your favor.
No, indeed, I was just about to ask you if, as is in my experience so far in this industry, the consumers and tourists' memory is relatively short. And I was going to ask you if your key, target markets for Aruba have pretty much forgotten about that, or if not forgiven Aruba, and then they coming back in droves now. Because the memory for that sort of thing is relatively short normally, even if it's something horrifying, usually, right?
Yeah, it was a nasty time. There was no question
Mm,
about that.
mm.
We couldn't. It was very hard to sell the island in those days.
Wow.
Today, Aruba is one of the most popular destinations in the Caribbean.
Right.
I think their time does heal things. And then it came up a few years ago, where they actually charged the young man with her murder, and it came back up in the news a bit then. But people think they go back and they say, "Well, we had a great time," or we're doing well," or and it just goes away. And
Mm.
uh, unfortunately, I mean, it was a horrible time for the family, for the young lady, but it's gone now. And when it involves a tourist, it
It's
has a
tough.
much bigger impact than if
Very tough.
something happened.
And in my view, it doesn't just go away necessarily. And I'm going to give you a compliment now that you weren't expecting. But it reminds me that you, Francis Purvey, you've always been quite adept and skillful at making these things go away and engaging with, trade and industry. Because I dug out a memo from the archives. I don't know what this says about me, but I keep this sort of stuff from 1993. I wonder if you remember this. It was a memo from you to the tourism and trade industry, March 14th, 1993, from Francis Purvey, Radisson Suite Resort on Sand Key. An update from Radisson Suite Resort in Sand Key after the Great Winter Storm of 1993. Remember that? Remember that storm?
I do. We lost the front
Epic.
windows of the hotel.
I remember that. Remember all the glass crashed in?
Yeah,
Was that
absolutely. It
before
was.
or after Al drove through the glass in the beach trolley?
I
Because
think
that
that Al
glass in
was
that
the
lobby smashed
Al,
twice,
Al
right?
was later. Al was
Al was
later.
later. So Al drove through it in the golf buggy or the beach trolley later on. But the first time it smashed in was the storm. But you wrote this very effective long memo giving the industry and all of our tourism and trade partners an update on what was happening with the property and inviting all the wholesalers to please continue sending their tourists to us and talking about blocks and all of that. So hopefully that makes you giggle. It made me giggle. But to your point, these things don't just go away by magic. People like you in the industry make it go away, and you engage with industry and continue to make them come back, right?
One of the funny, I've lived with hurricanes all my life, and
Yes.
regrettably,
That patch of
they're
earth
still
has,
around.
yes,
And I think we all prepare. I must say, preparing for a hurricane is a procedure, and it's
yes,
well done, generally speaking. The
yes.
challenge is making sure that you open up your doors as soon as you can afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
and let people know that they are open. Because a lot of times you're sort of just decompressing from whatever
Yes.
went down, even if it was a minor thing, and
Mm.
the staff has got to get back and things like that. Like any crisis, getting back up and saying a truthful story. I mean, you can't say, "Oh, everything's wonderful. We just lost half our hotel. That's all."
That's right.
um, or a destination, whatever. You got to be truthful, and getting that word out. And I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I don't remember that particular. I remember the incident, and I remember, but I don't remember writing that. But it sounds like something I would do. But you talked about destinations versus hotels. We all have the same symbiotic partnerships and relationships. Some personal, some professional,
Yes.
and maintaining those and is so important in everything that we do, even today.
It's such hard work, and it's a skill, and, some people have the skills, some people are, very good at it, some people not so much, and, in order to be able to be in the industry as long, or even, briefly but successfully, it isn't just magic. It takes skill and work. And, to your point, it takes having a good mentor who's willing to show you the ropes. You'd mentioned Bermuda a couple of times. I often wonder, if you've had a Bermuda Triangle-esque mystery, or you've encountered something in hotel sales that just magically resolved itself.
Well, the Bermuda Triangle is a wonderful myth. So many things have been written about it. Doesn't mean that these circumstances that happened didn't happen. But I can't tell you how many times I and everybody else flies through that Bermuda Triangle flying to the United States.
And here you are and you're
Um,
fine.
yeah, yeah, I'm still alive. I don't think I ever had any issues with that. Um, Thinking of something magically disappearing, I don't even think that happens at Disney. Certainly, I will say that procrastination has never helped anything go away.
No.
Uh, but I do think that strategic thinking is what makes things happen, and
Yes.
quick thinking and
Yes.
responding. Not too quick. I mean, you don't want to be off the cuff and said something that totally offended somebody else, but it's like life in general. But I don't, I can't think of a single thing that happened that was magically just went away, and nor the Bermuda Triangle.
I agree with you. There's really no such thing, is there?
Not at all. So, Shannon, listen, I have a question for you.
Yes,
You've
please.
been in revenue management for decades. I kind of scary to say that.
Kinda
And
literally, but I'll take it.
one of my pet peeves has always been the relationship between the sales directors and the revenue directors.
Yes.
I don't think that's gone away. And in media I read these days, it seems to be getting worse because more people have ideas and they all seem to know everything that the revenue manager actually or revenue director actually does know and has the
Yeah.
tools to do.
Yeah.
Is there a solution there?
I'm sorry that's been your experience, Francis. I think the animosity between sales and revenue is evolving and going out of fashion. And I think what's informing that and what is pushing that evolution is that, and I wonder if you've seen this too, is that salespeople are realizing that they've always had to be a bit of a revenue manager, and revenue managers are realizing they've always had to be a little bit of a sales manager anyway. They might not have had sales in their job title. Sales managers haven't had revenue in their title, but they've both had to work in both of these disciplines, whether they liked it or not, or whether they were good at it or not. So if you think about it, like to me, the most strategic, most brilliant, most successful directors of revenue are also very good salespeople, and they're very influential. And they're the type of people, it's almost like a contradiction in psychometric brain terms, because you have to be equally right-brained and left-brained. They're sort of extroverted nerds or like really outgoing geeks, because they have to be very analytical and very good with um, spreadsheets and terms and distribution and commercial and strategy and numbers, and really get their rocks off when TrevPAR goes up by 35 cents. So they have to be very analytical, but they also have to be very adept at convincing salespeople and very strong-minded general managers of a strategy, and going in and leading a revenue strategy meeting and convincing a room full of people that their idea is the right way to go. And if you're not good at that part, you're just not going to be a good revenue manager. Whereas the most successful salespeople, they also have to have, I think more so than ever, a better appreciation of the commercial aspects of a segment that they might be going after. And maybe this quarter, if the corporate segment is overperforming and I need to dial back on that a little bit, if I have a revenue manager mind, then I know that maybe I'm going to have to put some filters on that segment, even though I'm hardwired to bring in as much corporate business as I can. So I don't know, will they ever see eye to eye? I think it's getting better, and I think they already do a little bit. And it's just evolved as the two disciplines have merged and had to evolve. And yet now I'm going to contradict myself because I think a little bit of tension between those disciplines is kind of a good thing, because you need a good argument, right? It's no good if everyone in the room has the same idea, and if everyone agrees, that's not helpful and it's no fun.
I want to give you an example
Yes,
why I
please.
have challenges.
Yes.
And a lot of it becomes down to personalities. And quite frankly, in my
Yeah.
recent experience, revenue managers seem to be driven by corporate office rather than GMs or salespeople.
Interesting.
And that's not necessarily a good thing.
Interesting.
But I will give you an example. At a hotel
Yeah.
I was dealing with, I was director of sales and marketing, and we have our weekly meeting with the revenue team. And I was always of the impression, and maybe this is outdated nowadays, is that I like to get a little bit of business on the books so that I can yield up. And this particular person that was fighting me almost every week would prefer to keep the rate higher. But and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that if it, as long as it comes in the leisure business, that's shorter and shorter times these days. But at the end, he would then put everything out there on all the cheap sites and discounts. So, you're counteracting the effort of actual yield managing. And I had great difficulty with that. And but that's where that comes from. I mean, I've had great relationships with revenue managers, including yourself. Um, and where we are symbiotic, where we are on the same page, and
Yes.
one can nowadays you have so much data, Shannon, and we can talk about data ad nauseum, and going from the old days of GDS and into artificial intelligence, and I guess that's where your biggest change in the last few years has been, taking advantage of the data, sharing the data necessarily, and believing in the data. Uh, and I guess I ask, what's happened there in your world? Is
In
it
terms of
good?
data or the evolution? You mean purely in
The
data?
evolution, like when we sat down years ago, we'd look down on a piece of paper and write down +1, -1, and all that sort of stuff. And
Worked a
and
treat
we had
too.
no idea. Oh, and the hotel would call around to different hotels to see what they were charging, or no, no, not what they were charging, but what they did last night or something. I can't
Oh,
remember
no,
what it
we
was.
asked what they were charging too, and we shouldn't have because, you
Well,
know, um,
no, you can't do that today anyway. No, we never
can't
did
do
it
that
anyway.
today.
I heard about that, but
No, we never did any such thing. No.
I guess the evolution, and like you've got some great tools out there nowadays. What are they helping?
I think they are. I mean, just like any tool, whether it's an extremely sophisticated revenue management system or a lathe or a hacksaw, it depends on the user and it depends on who's using the tool, how much damage you might do. So, I mean, when I started working in hotels in the 1900s, it was even before the Excel spreadsheet era. Because I initially did my forecasts on a 28 square table on a manual bit of printed paper. Remember those? You probably remember
Yes.
those. You did. And then I evolved to Lotus Notes. Ooh, that was super fancy. Remember Lotus Notes? In those early days, revenue management, or the artist known as yield management. In fact, I think I still have one of my old business cards that says Shannon Knapp Yield Manager. cracks me up. It was essentially me squinting at the paper, checking the weather forecast, and making an educated guess based on whether the family from Cincinnati in Suite 1001 was likely to extend their stay again. Our dynamic pricing strategy involved, literally erasing numbers and writing new ones on that giant whiteboard. Remember that? Do you remember that giant
Yeah,
whiteboard with the
sure
prices
do.
on it? That was our dynamic pricing.
There's no question the industry has changed dramatically. I should put in a caveat here that all of my experience has been in resort world, not the corporate business world or extended stay. So what I'm
Resort
talking
world,
about is,
yes, but you've required on the corporate segment to deliver into that resort world, right?
oh yeah, absolutely,
You just mean
and
not
meetings
in
also,
a corporate setting or in a city downtown CBD location.
right?
Mm,
Or a suburban limited service property.
mm,
By the way, I have all the respect for that, and I know that the people who manage them have just as equal the challenges as anybody else.
mm.
The resort world is a little bit difficult because it's got a lot more moving parts. But again, a beach resort has one real main asset, and that is the beach.
Yes.
Just as a golf resort has a main asset in the golf course.
Mm.
They also have spas and all sorts of other things that restaurants and bars that make up the whole package. Again, the other thing I'm seeing with revenue is people are talking. I think this is intelligently, and I think we did it in sales all the time, especially dealing with groups. In that, what is the total value of the group? Not
Yes.
just the rooms revenue, but the food and beverage revenue and any other revenues that come in. And you have to take the whole package. And I'm seeing that more and more. And I think they're even coming up with acronyms that measure that. And I think that's a good thing. Although it was just second nature, quite frankly. And you could even do that. And you could talk about leisure segments also. That some people stayed longer, so you like them.
Yes.
Some people stayed shorter and were pain in the neck.
Yes.
So you always had to be very aware, and it's fascinating. It's fun as long as you make it fun,
Yes.
and you don't. I've had some great, I think, minor successes and great big successes in the industry in different places. And I look back on a lot of them with great pride and with fun. I'll give you one example. This was Aruba, and around this time of year, I was getting messages from the restaurant. Now, I was in Fort Lauderdale. The hotel was in Aruba. The reservations was in Aruba, but I would be in communication with them all the time. The revenue manager was in my office, and I was getting calls and just casually conversation. Yeah, we're getting a lot of calls, but nobody's booking.
Mm.
Everybody's shopping for the next quarter, not for like the first part of the following year. And I knew that if they were shopping my hotel, they were shopping every hotel in that
Yes.
same category on the island. And so we, the revenue manager and I and the hotel, decided that we wanted to get these people on the books, get these people to make their decision. So we created a flash sale. It lasted a week in early September. And we reached out to everybody. We didn't just go to a certain select list. We went to the tour operators. We went to everybody. We created a, a, a buying situation where people would be stupid if they didn't buy it. It was non-refundable. There's a few little regular rules and things in virtually all the room categories. And in that week, we sold, as I recall, it was like $750,000 in revenue for that first
Nice.
January and February.
Oh, I
Now,
bet that felt
maybe a
good.
revenue manager today would say, "Yeah, but we were going to get that business anyway, and we could have gotten 20% more." My argument on that is these people were shopping the island, not my hotel specifically,
Mm.
and if they didn't get what I got them, and I got them, non-refundable, they would have stayed somewhere else, and I would have been struggling to make those last 10% of rooms sold out in those peak months. So I consider that a big success. And that is one situation where I contradict myself and I say that the revenue manager and the hotel and me and all agreed I think we probably had a blackout here or there because of groups in the house or something like that. But
Sure.
it was generally open up, and we made it available to everybody, and that was, in my opinion, a huge success, in creating a good background for that first part of the year, and I'm not convinced that we would have gotten it if we didn't do that.
Yes. I mean, what you were doing there was more the classic fundamental yield management 101, which is following a conversion model where we want to feed our old friend Bob. We want Bob, business on books, to be nice and fat early. And then we follow an ascending pricing model, because in the ideal model, pricing in all segments should increase as we get closer to the arrival date, right? It doesn't always
Absolutely.
work that way, and it's not always that perfect. But if we focus on conversion early and then follow that model and fatten up Bob early, then that's great. Now, the painful part, but the important part, is that in a scenario like that, there are actually data models and displacement models and usable denied revenue models. Remember those reports that can show
Mhm.
how many requests, clicks, calls, there's several different ways to measure how many requests came in after that that would have booked and had a higher willingness to pay that you displaced as a result of filling up a certain portion of the inventory early. It's hard to prove, but not always. But again, in the ideal ascending pricing model, what you did in that scenario was to get a lot of conversion early. And every revenue manager or forecaster will tell you that if you have more business on books early and less empty rooms, it makes it a lot easier to price what's left. And it's a lot easier to forecast when you're forecasting a portion of the inventory and not all of it. So I would vote for having no idea what the segmentation was or how many rooms were in the inventory in that scenario. I would vote for what you did was the right thing. So there you go.
Well, I would not disagree with you, obviously. Although,
Well
and
done,
I don't
Francis.
think I don't think anybody did. I think it was the right thing to do, and we didn't fill the hotel over that week, and say, "Oh, now we're done for the quarter."
And this
We
is the
just created.
danger. Sorry to interrupt you there, but this is the danger, which people like you wouldn't do, but people that are new to the industry or owner operators, particularly of an independent property, who don't have the experience or the tech or the advice or the training, they take a blanket approach and apply the same approach to every segment, every day, all year. And that doesn't work, as you and I both know. So,
Mhm.
that same scenario and that same strategy and those tactics that you followed in that scenario, you probably wouldn't follow for a different time of year or even a different day of the week. Whereas with less evolved operators or people that are new at the game, they just say, well, we're going to have really cheap rates early and then put the price up high as we get closer to the arrival date. Well, that doesn't work for all segments every day of the week, all year. So you have to diversify that, sometimes by day of the week, sometimes maybe just by season, certainly by segment. And nowadays, we do have the tools and the training and the tech to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I love working with independent hotels because we can act quickly.
Yeah.
I worked with one brand on a project, and if they wanted to have a special, you had to tell them 90 days in advance. I was like,
Oh, goodness me.
I don't know what's going to happen in 90 days, so I'm putting out something that's totally unreasonable or
Goodness.
unlikable or unwanted. But in today's world, we all know the hotels are being run by equity managers, equity owners,
More and more,
and
right?
they've always been wanted to be profitable, but right now it seems, and this is not new actually. Short-term goals seem to surpass any long-term strategies,
Mm,
and that's a shame in our business, because we are in the hospitality business.
indeed. And do you think that it might be a different answer depending on the brand and the asset manager, but do you think that is down to cash flow? Do you think that's down to asset management and just wanting to see more short term revenue on the books? maybe for capital raising. It's probably a lot of different answers it could be, right?
Well, yeah, but I think you hit the nail on the head, though. I mean, it is really the equity and the profit. Don't forget, a lot of these big companies are all public companies, so they've got to
Yes.
report their earnings
Yes.
on a quarterly basis, and their leadership is judged
Yes.
on those earnings, and that's only for 3 months. So who knows? In 3 years from now, the decision was good. We got ourselves up, but and now you're seeing more people saying, "Well, business isn't quite as good for the rest of the year as we thought it was going to be." Um, and then these people are looking at it using your tools and seeing what the demand is and trying to make understand some of the political things that are going on. Uh, but in essence, the equity asset management is the key driver in a hotel today. Not necessarily the general manager, and not necessarily to the benefit of the customer.
Yes.
I mean, I saw on the news. I didn't see this, in fact, but in Florida the other day, you might have seen it too. That somebody was checking. It was a limited service hotel. Somebody was checking into this hotel, and instead of there being a person at the front desk, there was a iPad, and the person was somewhere trying to check somebody in with absolutely no personal experience, no personal interaction, and they call that hospitality. I mean, fortunately, from what I understand, it was shut down.
I wondered about that. Were they just trying to be clever and be tech savvy and, oh, look how clever we are. We've got tech running the hotel. I think it's that. It's probably let's save on some labor and,
I think that
save
you
on
got it.
some human.
Save on labor.
Yeah, because a human employee overhead with on costs and head count, actual human head count is a lot more expensive. Or were they
Yeah.
just trying to be clever? But I agree with you. I mean, hospitality is always, and in my view, will always be about people. And I don't think that property did themselves any favors because the press that I've read about it was not great.
Yeah, but to your point, that's press today. Tomorrow, people will forget about it. But
Yeah,
obviously, you and I didn't forget about it.
indeed.
And I know that the guest who was checking in would never have forgotten about it.
Nope.
And all the people he or she talked to wouldn't have forgotten about it. In any case, I mean, that goes beyond revenue and sales. It goes on operations. And I want to share that probably one of my pet peeves in all the hotels I've ever been at is when you're talking to operations people and you're in a meeting and you're trying to get something done. I don't know what it might be. Operations, and I'm not downgrading operations people, marvelous. But a lot of times the decision is made at the benefit of the operations team, making it easier without regard to the customer's service and what the customer expectation was. And there's a little, I always fought for that in the meetings I was at is, yeah, but what about the customer? You're taking away from that experience. Or we cannot do that because, yes, you can. There's another pet peeve of mine, and it again doesn't have anything to do with revenue. But how many site inspections have I done in my lifetime? I couldn't tell you, whether it's a group or an individual, a bride, a meeting planner, whatever.
Bridezillas, bless them.
They go in and you say, "I'd like to see a room," and oh no, we were full last night, so we have no rooms available to show you. Isn't that wonderful? I said, "No, it's not wonderful. You can't tell me you didn't have one person check out at 9 o'clock this morning and you couldn't have one room ready at 11 o'clock, knowing that the site inspection was on." That's one of those examples. I said, we can't do that. Yes, you can. I mean, I have forced that with housekeeping. I've got a site inspection at such and such a time. I just need one room. That's all I need. And you get it cleaned, and it's blocked out for the site inspection, and it's available after that.
I think what
Those
we
are
have
little
there,
things.
I think what we have there is a willingness issue, not an ability issue.
Well, that's why you're the consultant, because you have all the big words.
Now, Francis, in that scenario, did you give housekeeping and the front desk managers sufficient notice that you needed a showroom at 9 a.m.?
Yes. Yes. As best I remember, I would never say no, even if I didn't. I'm sure it was a discussion point before the thing.
Did you put
And
the
by the
room
way,
on
I
out of
remember
service
one of
status in the
ours.
PMS?
Our one of yours and my great successes. I remember one March we ended up with what it was 96 point something percent occupancy at a very
The $1
healthy
million
ADR.
March. Yes.
Yeah,
The
small
$1
hotel.
million March. 220 suites, might I add, I still remember, with 35-foot cascading waterfalls, 8 food and beverage outlets. Yes, I remember that because how many times did I say it on the phone?
Absolutely.
31 days in the month of March was then, is still now. $1 million in revenue. It was the first time that property had ever taken in $1 million in rooms revenue, never mind the ancillary. That was before we started obsessing about ancillary revenue. $1 million in room revenue in those 31 days in that March. Yes, I remember it because I earned myself a nice little incentive bonus on that trip.
Listen, I'm a big fan of incentives, and incentives. I don't mean incentive travel, which I'm a big fan of and do a lot of business with.
Yes.
But the incentives can be everything. And we get off the subject again, but incentives could be a pat on the back for a great day, or it could be something that's really tangible, and it could be a gift card, but it's appreciated, and it well, not only it does a good job to say good job, but it also helps retention. So
Yes.
I'm a big fan of incentive travel and incentives in general. Obviously, I'm in sales. I love incentives.
Yes.
Um, and made a fair amount of money on incentives.
Well,
So,
and do you know what? To your point on operations and sales and revenue and front desk and with incentives, I think, and I have proven with one of my clients, going back about 2 years ago, with independent property in Australia, and I convinced the owner operator, general manager, to start having their executive housekeeper attend their weekly revenue strategy meetings. She thought I was cray-cray. And I said, trust me, can we just do this? Just for 2 weeks, let's have her attend the revenue strategy meetings. And my reasoning for that was that when she got to see some of the strategies and how we decided which segments and which types of guests were the most profitable, which aren't always the ones that stay the longest. Sometimes it's the ones that stay a shorter amount of time, but they pay a higher rate and they have more ancillary. But when she got more involved and had an appreciation for some of the revenue strategy and the yields pricing stuff, she found that really interesting. And then what she started doing was listening for cues and listening for insights and data and things she was hearing that the guests were talking about in the hallways. And then she came back to the next revenue meeting and was telling us, that package you guys introduced about 6 months ago, it's not working. And here's why. The guests hate it. They don't like the amenity that was included in that package because it always gets left behind in the room and it gets thrown away. Revenue manager wouldn't know that. They're not cleaning rooms. And so that exchange of information between housekeeping and revenue and sales started happening because we were having the housekeeper attend the meetings. Then, and she still attends those, by the way, but then we started having the revenue person attend, not every day, but attend some of the housekeeping huddles for the same kind of reason. So then that exchange of insights and data started to happen. And then this is where I'm getting at with incentives. I will come to my point. Now, in that property, the housekeeping manager is incentivized. A small part of her quarterly incentive is based on the hotel's TrevPAR targets, whether or not they reach them. And we're talking about having them in part based on their STR results, but that's a little bit more complicated. But with incentives, the more we have everyone in a hospitality property venue incentivized toward the same goal, I'm telling you, it works. I've seen it over and over and over.
It goes back to what you were talking about earlier, is the director of sales and the revenue director getting along on being on the same page. Now you've expanded it so other people understand what's going on. Although I am not an advocate for more meetings at hotels.
No, shorter meetings. And do you know what also works really well? And this is something that I learned from my tech friends, is that when they have huddles or stand-up meetings, as my tech friends have taught me to say, when we have a stand-up or when we have meetings, literally everyone is standing up. No more sitting around a boardroom, and although it's kind of nice when chef brings in goodies or offcuts or, croissants or things he's experimenting on. But when you have meetings, revenue strategy meetings, standing up, no chairs allowed, it's a lot more efficient. It's a lot more punchy, goes really fast. Everyone talks. Everyone's keen to get out of there. So if you have stand-up meetings where everyone's literally standing up and no chairs, works a treat.
Well, I think everybody knows that our attention spans have diminished dramatically, and I know mine has.
I
I mean,
know.
I used to get into meetings and people would be on their phones, and it would annoy me because I thought they weren't paying attention, but really they were looking at, in some cases, looking at what they were going to say because based on something that's in their system or whatever.
Yes.
So, but that's another world and a whole different subject.
Yes. Now, speaking of, looking at things and looking at tech and looking at our phones, do you think that, do you see technology as a threat or a support toward revenue or sales management roles in the future?
It's an interesting thought. Obviously, I think you have to look at the customer. The customer is
Mm,
doing everything on his or her phone.
yes.
So what tech has done is had to make the hotels, revenue managers, sales, operations, a lot smarter. I know they talk about personalized, as people travel, they want their personalization. A lot of times when I check in a hotel, I don't know what I want. So God knows how the hotel knows what I want. But I think it's a challenge. I think it's good in general. I mean, there's extremes, and AI. I have no idea where AI is going, except I know it's changing tomorrow.
Yes.
Uh, and now I've got people I work with, and they say they had a conversation with their AI. I'm like, oh, you're talking to your computer as if the computer is talking
Mm-hmm.
back to you, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what AI is, and that scares me.
Mm-hmm.
But, I certainly embrace AI and however it can be used effectively. I don't think a lot of people really use it effectively. I think it's beyond most of us on how to use it effectively. Obviously, I shouldn't say this. Medically, there's a lot of things in medical that they can do better. And hospitality, again, it comes back to what is the word hospitality and
Indeed.
how do you deal with it? Again, I'm talking resorts and people have saved up money or they saved up points or they've saved up something or they've made plans. They've thought about it for a long time. I always said to people at the hotel, I was the fortunate uh, recipient of somebody actually checking in or going to a hotel or sitting at a bar in a hotel after a travel agent worked to tell them which to go. Or in those days, nowadays you look on the internet and you call your friends and you bring up AI to find out what oh my God. And then you go to TripAdvisor and see what everybody else thinks. And then I get there and they're having their martini at the bar. And I always thought that was the best part of the whole job.
Sure is. Sure is. I mean, I think tech has made us incredibly more efficient and data driven, which is great, but it's also made us realize just how complicated our business really is. And, to your point, it's going to change tomorrow. I mean, every time we think we've got it really figured out, along comes a new platform or a new guest expectation that we hadn't thought of, or a global pandemic that makes our predictive models just look like very sophisticated fortune cookies.
I think even in days when I was a young man, I think the expression was the only constant is change.
Mm,
And unfortunately, it's not even constant; it's exponential now. But we have to be alert to it and deal with it. Everybody talks about what the Gen Z people want. I mean, this here you get into your revenue management and sales and all that. What do Gen Z people want? And again, they're talking shorter attention spans, more adventure related activities, more exploration, and certainly no loyalty necessarily to any one thing. And I think we have to do that. I'm not too sure that all the generations are that different. In essence, times have changed more than the people's inclination. Although Gen Z have grown up with computers and iPhones and uh, I grew up with a payphone.
yeah, and a rotary phone. And
A
I mean,
rotary phone and a Rolodex.
I still remember that darn phone at the hotel where you and I worked together. That was that giant, great big PABX machine. Remember? That
Yep.
thing terrified the absolute bejesus out of me. I used to hang up on people quite a bit, and every single time, I don't know if you remember this, every time we answered that phone, it was, "It's a great day at the Radisson Suite Resort on Sand Key. How may I direct your call?" Oh, I wish I had $1 for every single time I said that. Drove me bananas. Anyway, I digress.
Just for reference, that hotel, it does no longer exist as a Radisson. It is a very successful Marriott.
Wow. It was a Radisson for how long? Was it 20 years? Because you opened it as a Radisson,
I was
right?
there 13 years. It just changed after I left, not because I left. And I didn't leave because it was switching to a Marriott.
No. Because you were
I
a director in how many different Radissons? 2, 3, 2?
Well, I had Aruba and St. Martin, and I was also at Bahia Mar in Fort Lauderdale. That's when I joined Boca Resorts after I left Sand Key.
Yes.
And again, all good moves, no regrets whatsoever.
No.
Um, and you learn every day from something. You learn interpersonal skills every day, and working with different types of people and customers. And I think if you have to say one thing, you have to toss stuff aside and enjoy life. And that would be, to me, the epitome of success is enjoying life and having good family. Ultimately, nobody's going to remember what you did for RevPAR in such and such a year and such and such. Well, you would, because you got it on a piece of paper there. But um, it's what you've done for the world is what's important.
Let me just ask you, Francis, 2 more quick questions before I let you go back to driving more tourism into Sunlark Associates hotels in Vero Beach. If you could time travel and give your early career self a warning, what would it be? Or what would be one thing you would tell your early career self? Don't fret about that. Don't freak out about that. It's going to be fine.
Well, I think what you said is actually what I would say to myself, in the sense that don't take yourself too seriously. There's no place for ego or boastfulness in any industry. Take your successes and be proud of them. Speak of them if you want to. I guess to my thinking, that's really where you have to go. You can't. I mean, I know people who stress, and I know people are driven to. I personally have been driven to stress by some general managers, and you have to walk away from it. Probably one of my favorite movies is Monty Python and in Holy
Life of
Grail.
Brian?
And no, more. Well, in general, if you can remember, towards the end of one of the films, they're singing a song and it says, "Always look on the bright side of
The
life."
bright side
And I
of
think
life.
that is my mantra, if you wish. Um, Always look on the bright side of life.
Yep,
And that was a kind of an ironic scene,
indeed.
as is everything with Monty Python.
Thank you for that. I'm going to have that song in my head now for the rest of the evening. I appreciate that. One final toast, Francis. Final toast before I let you go. If you are raising a glass to celebrate hospitality workers everywhere, what would your toast be?
I think I would say to all of us, happiness, being appreciated, and enjoying the day for all the successes and the smiles that we create.
I love that. I love that. Because that's what we're selling. At the end of every single day, our perishable inventory is happiness and a joyful experience away from home for an hour or a night or a day or, part of your life. That's what we're selling. That's our perishable product, right? Is a joyful experience away from
Sure it is. Sure it is. I mean, that's what hospitality is.
home.
As I say, it is not the same hospitality as 20 years ago, but the concept is and should be. It's just a lot more complicated now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other side of that whole thing, just to digress again, you're talking about destinations versus hotels, and some destinations are having a hard time right now
Mm.
being overcrowded in season, and this is in Med a lot, and in some cities in general. And the remedies are what probably should have been thought of beforehand before it got to that point. But sometimes greed takes over, and more is better. And I think a lot of destinations right now are finding more is not necessarily better. And you got to always remember that there are people who live there who must survive and must enjoy themselves.
Yes.
The minute you lose that sense, and you see that in Venice now, in Barcelona,
Yes.
and some other cities. So, in the same vein, hotels have got to be planning more than a quarter in advance for the benefit of their customers and what their customers are going to want. And if I can say one last thing, offer the services without having to have a resort fee.
Oh, goodness me. Resort fees and resort taxes and this fee and that fee. It's sort of like what airlines have tried to get away with a baggage tax. And, oh, you mean you wanted to have a seat on the airplane? Oh, that'd be extra. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we're, not nickel and diming customers as we used to call it. But, to your point, we have had, even here in Australia, in destinations like Byron Bay, Australia, we've had a lot of we've been overfed lions in some destinations where we just have too much tourism, too many guests, and it does create multiple kinds of problems.
Yeah, and travel is one of those things that for many is a tedious job every day, traveling in hotel and this and that and next thing. But a lot of times these people say, "Oh, but look at all the points I got, and our family went to Bermuda, and I could use all my points." So things like that. It's all a big cycle, and it's all good.
Yes. And you see, this is where I am firmly convinced that AI, with all of its perils and problems and nonsense and troubles, AI and solid, proven revenue management systems can actually help hotels and even destinations not be overfed lions that then have to, put crazy taxes on tourists and squirt them with water bottles in cafes to get them to go away. If we use AI and our revenue management systems in the way that they're intended and designed to be more data-driven and science and fact-based in our predictive forecasting, then we can put some of those filters and fences in place long before we become overfed lions and we have to put terrible things in place to force them to go away. So maybe in that way, that's where I think AI and revenue management RMSs can actually make us smarter and better providers of hospitality.
And the other thing, and I didn't bring this up, and I keep saying this is the last thing, but the people, population today are becoming much more aware of sustainability practices.
Yes.
And this over-tourism issue is one of them. Food rescue is another.
Yes.
Recycling is yet another. I did see a thing yesterday that said that business travelers are not as concerned about that. They just want to get in and out, I guess. But in general, people have become much more aware of it, and destinations and cities and hotels to a certain extent. So maybe we are all trying to save the planet after all.
Wouldn't that be nice? Well, thank you, Francis Purvey, for joining me today on the Hotelier Huddle. I always enjoy chatting with you. We should make this a more frequent thing.
Well, a little bit more frequent would help,
Thanks, Francis.
Take care.